Hello everyone, today I want to talk to you about China's rapid expansion of nuclear power, with its installed capacity becoming the largest in the world. In addition, Trump is hyping up for the July 4th Independence Day, and whoever tries to stop him, he goes after them. After being taken down a notch by NATO Secretary General Rutte for 2 days and enjoying himself for 2 days, Trump started acting up again. He has since taken aim at both Canada and Iran. On June 27, Trump posted on social media saying that the United States had just learned that Canada announced it would impose a digital services tax on American tech companies, calling it a direct and blatant attack on the US. He said that Canada was clearly following the EU's example in attacking the United States. Trump said that in light of this shocking tax, the United States is hereby terminating all trade negotiations with Canada, effective immediately. The United States will inform Canada within the next 7 days of the tariffs Canada will have to pay for trading with the US. Trump specifically added the words effective immediately. This has the flavor of a trade war all over again. US Treasury Secretary Payson said they would invoke Section 301 to investigate Canada. Trump bullies the weak and fears the strong. He wants Canadian Prime Minister Carney to beg on his knees, so that on July 4th, Independence Day, he can once again claim, "I totally beat Canada." In addition, Trump has also set his sights on Iran, which is facing internal divisions. After the US deployed B-2 bombers to strike Iran's nuclear facilities, Trump claimed that Iran's nuclear facilities had been completely destroyed. But CNN revealed a preliminary assessment report from the US Department of Defense, stating that Iran's nuclear facilities suffered only minor damage. This made Trump furious, as it ruined his narrative of America having totally won. But then, something strange happened in Iran. On June 25, just as the debate over the bombing's effectiveness was raging in the US, Iran suddenly changed its tune and admitted that its nuclear facilities had been damaged. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Bakai said that the country's nuclear facilities were severely damaged in the US airstrike. He said, "Our nuclear facilities suffered serious destruction, that's for sure." It was highly unusual for Iran to change its stance and admit that its nuclear facilities were damaged. In fact, it aligned perfectly with Trump's narrative. Iran immediately received a reward. Trump promised to ease restrictions on Iranian oil exports. Trump also claimed that nuclear negotiations with Iran would resume within 2 weeks. However, just 1 day later, Iran's Supreme Leader Khamenei had a different take on the outcome of the US airstrike. On June 26, Khamenei delivered his first televised speech since the ceasefire. He said that under Iran's strikes, the Israeli regime was crushed and nearly collapsed. He congratulated the Iranian people on their victory. He also said that the United States joined the war because it believed that otherwise, Israel would be completely destroyed. The US attack did not destroy Iran's nuclear facilities, it was all just for show. In contrast, Iran's strike on the US missile base was a harsh slap in America's face. He said that in this war, the United States would gain nothing, and Iran would never surrender. Khamenei said that Iran's nuclear facilities were not destroyed, which was not only a slap in the face to Trump, but also to the Iranian Foreign Ministry led by President Pezeshkian. It is clear that there are internal conflicts within Iran. The Iranian Foreign Ministry is eager to reconcile with the United States, and even, quite bizarrely, cooperated with the US or allowed Iran's own national nuclear facilities to be seriously damaged in the American airstrikes. But after Khamenei's speech, the Iranian Foreign Ministry's friendly gestures toward the United States also had to come to an end. The Iranian Foreign Ministry said that the plan to resume nuclear negotiations with the United States in the short term has been suspended. Khamenei's speech exposed the story Trump had been bragging about. It seems unlikely that Trump will be able to claim a big win over Iran on America's Independence Day. As a result, Trump was furious. On June 27, he posted on his newly created social media platform, harshly countering the remarks made by Iran's Supreme Leader Khamenei. Trump said, "Why would Khamenei so bluntly and foolishly claim that he had won the war with Israel? You have to know, Khamenei is just boasting when he says that. It's simply not true. As someone with strong faith, he shouldn't be making such boastful claims." Trump insisted that Iran suffered heavy losses in the conflict, and that 3 of Iran's evil nuclear facilities were completely destroyed. Trump also said that the United States knew exactly where Khamenei was hiding during the conflict, but prevented Israel and the US from ending Khamenei's life. He said that in the final stage of the war, he asked Israel to recall a group of planes that were flying directly to Tehran to carry out an important mission. I saved Khamenei from an extremely terrible and humiliating death. He doesn't have to thank me, thank President Trump. Trump also said that in recent days, he has been working hard to lift sanctions on Iran so that Iran would have a chance to recover quickly. But he said that now he has given up on this effort. He said, "I was hit by angry, hateful, and conspiratorial rhetoric, so I immediately abandoned all work related to lifting sanctions on Iran." Later, when Trump was asked if he'd bomb Iran's nuclear facilities 3 times if needed, he said, "Of course, without a doubt, 3 bombings could absolutely be carried out." He does not rule out attacking Iran again. After Trump's speech, Iranian Foreign Minister Araghchi hit back, demanding that the United States stop using disrespectful language toward Khamenei. Araghchi posted on social media, saying that Iran is an independent and resilient nation and will never allow anyone to decide our fate. He called out Trump, saying that if he truly wants to reach an agreement, he should stop his disrespectful and unacceptable tone toward Khamenei and stop hurting his millions of loyal followers. Araghchi even mocked Israel, saying it could only call for help from its daddy to avoid being destroyed by Iran's missiles. We can sum it up like this. First, Trump's deal-making style of diplomacy, always wanting to claim that America has won big, is actually baseless. In a war where the US sends fighter jets to invade another country, and afterwards the US, Israel, and Iran all declare themselves the winner, does that even make sense? This kind of diplomatic foundation is extremely fragile, because the US hasn't actually given up anything that would allow Iran to explain itself to its own people. Second, Iran's problem is that its president is always looking to bow down to the US in exchange for having sanctions lifted. But the supreme leader doesn't agree with this kind of weakness. The lack of unity within Iran exposes its vulnerabilities, making it easy prey for attacks from Israel or even the US. This story teaches us that to forge iron, you must be strong yourself. In other news, China's nuclear power plants have drawn attention due to their rapid acceleration. Sina Finance has a special report, which mentions that on April 27, the State Council Executive Meeting reviewed and decided to greenlight this year's nuclear power projects. This year, over 10 new units will be approved, driving 200 billion yuan in investment. Since nuclear power approvals resumed in 2019, this marks the 7th consecutive year new nuclear projects have been approved. Moreover, it's the 4th consecutive year China approved over 10 new units annually. This continuous wave of nuclear development is gradually allowing China's nuclear capacity to surpass traditional nuclear giants like Russia, France, and the United States. Yang Chongli, rotating chairman of the China Nuclear Energy Industry Association, said China has 58 commercial nuclear power units operating, with 61 gigawatts, and 44 approved units under construction, with 52 gigawatts. This makes China's total nuclear power capacity the world's largest. However, after the Fukushima accident in Japan in 2011, many countries were concerned about nuclear contamination, and the nuclear power industry was once called to a halt. It wasn't until 2019 that it restarted, following the World Bank's announcement to lift the ban on nuclear power financing, marking a major shift in the World Bank's energy policy. Due to the massive electricity demand driven by the development of artificial intelligence, the new U.S. administration signed 4 executive orders in July, planning to launch the construction of 10 large-scale nuclear power plants by 2030. Currently, the nuclear power capacity in the United States is about 100 gigawatts, but there is widespread skepticism about whether the US actually has enough resources to build that many nuclear power plants. Meanwhile, China's nuclear power projects have suddenly accelerated, essentially a grand strategy in the international energy game. First, massively increasing investment to drive economic growth. After momentum, traditional infrastructure projects began to wane, artificial canals, photovoltaic and wind power plants, and nuclear power stations became the focus of large-scale infrastructure development. Last year, domestic investment in nuclear power reached 146.9 billion yuan, a 54% increase year-on-year, setting a record. This year, nuclear power investment will exceed 200 billion yuan, significantly boosting related industries and supporting the economy. Second, it concerns a major power's energy security. Since 2018, with globalization's backlash, conflicts intensified, disrupting global supply chains. Ensuring independent, controllable energy security is a core national agenda for China. After all, nuclear power makes up for the shortcomings of both traditional fossil fuels and new energy sources like wind and hydropower. On one hand, nuclear power has the characteristics of extremely low carbon emissions, no pollution, and high cleanliness. On the other hand, compared to new energy sources like solar and wind, nuclear power has important advantages such as higher stability, greater power generation efficiency, and longer operating hours. At present, domestic nuclear power plants have already become an important source of supporting electricity for the eastern coastal regions. In Liaoning, Zhejiang, Fujian, Guangdong, and Hainan, nuclear power accounts for 20% of total electricity. Nationally, last year nuclear power was only 4.5% of total electricity generation. Compared to the explosive growth of wind, photovoltaic, hydro, and solar power, nuclear power plants clearly have much room for development, and nuclear power also has the potential to become the final stabilizing force in China's energy landscape. Third, investment in nuclear power is tied to future technological competition among major powers. There's a global nuclear energy revival, with the International Atomic Energy Agency raising its forecast for global nuclear power development for 4 consecutive years. Nuclear power in China currently accounts for only 4.5% of electricity generation, but it's expected to increase to about 10% by 2030, roughly on par with the current global average. Since AI development requires massive electricity, increasing nuclear power will provide stronger support for future technological advancements. To sum up, China is launching many advanced third-generation nuclear power projects with its own intellectual property rights, while also vigorously developing fourth-generation nuclear power, pursuing multiple pathways. Professor Jacopo Buongiorno from MIT's Department of Nuclear Science and Engineering commented that China is already a world leader in nuclear technology, especially in its ability to deploy fourth-generation nuclear reactors, where it is 10 to 15 years ahead of the United States.